Well, hello and welcome to this video. And today we're going to go over the basics of the mechanics in the game Raid Shadow Legends. So this is Raid. I have a bit of tearing when I do this, okay. Yeah, so this is Raid. And it's a game where you have these champions. But when you're not familiar with the format of the game, it can be kind of confusing what's going on when you're using these champions and what's going on. It's mostly an idle battler game, so you just set your dudes with their commands and, just let them go on their merry way and farm for you and do stuff for you. Through combat, things are achieved, and so let's have a look at why things are going like this. And for me, I had the advantage. This is the game Raid is basically based on a sort of a game type or genre where you have these it's a format basically for a game, and the one that popularized this format was Summoner Wars. I started with theirs. I knew like what defense and these debuffs did. So when I was asked to pick my starting champion, I knew from just reading the skills that Kale was the best. Because I knew, because of the bosses I would face, I knew that the reset on this skill would be really good. But for a lot of people, the mechanics, they can be confusing. It's not like you can judge by this high elf's appearance what she does. You have to have a certain understanding of the underlying mechanics and the engine of the game. And different people learn in different ways. So what I'm going to do is do my take on a presentation of these basic mechanics. And there's probably people who have done a better job at describing this more methodical than I am going to do, but I'm going to do it a take on it, and hopefully it will fit someone well. She's currently lacking a ring because someone else took it, and obviously an empty slot is inefficient, but I've shown in an earlier video of mine how there was a guy I was helping out with his builds, and he was a bit scared to upgrade. But one of the basic things you gotta understand about gearing a champ is that these low star items, they are a low quality. So even if you upgrade them high, they will not they will not give you much stats. So this is a level 12 3-star ring. It gives you roughly 1500 HP. Do I have a different HP ring? Not here. Let me just bring an HP ring up. And here we have a 5-star HP ring, and it has 800 more base stats, 780. So yeah, that's a pretty big difference from same upgrade. This is cheaper to upgrade. This only costs 16,000 for one attempt to get to higher level. This one costs 26,000, so it's significantly higher cost than 6-star items, the best type of item currently in the game. They cost quite a bit to upgrade, 20,000 already at +8, and the cost increases as you go higher. But you still want the high-end items. Like this is just something I said for fun. It is not something that you can really use. What you can do with low-star equipment that I do sometimes for fun, it's not necessarily super efficient, but something you can do is, if I equip this and then I remove it, it only costs 10,000 silver to remove. So cheap equipment is, no, low grade equipment is cheap to remove. So you don't need to be afraid of removing like your old 4-star gear when you're upgrading to your better 5-star, 6-star gear that's coming in. That's something you should do. And the game is basically, it's a game you play long term. over that long-term period, you're going to put your grind in, getting different items, and a big point of the whole game is progression. So these stages you go through, like at first I only had these low grade, only had a 4-star banner. I was so happy that I could like get 8 more speed. But then you get, bigger items, and then you suddenly have an arbiter sitting at 333 speed, which is a significant difference. That's total though. She has a pretty decent 5-star banner, but yeah, I can still upgrade her. So that's what I'm doing. I'm currently level 84 on this account, and I am pretty casual. Some people are further in development at a lower level, but as I am, I have some good pieces of gear. This is mediocre. Oh, this is incredibly mediocre, but okay. And this is a pretty interesting 50 accuracy amulet, even at 5-star, so can be quite useful. I have managed to get a high accuracy score on this debuffer. She has some debuff potentially. So this allows, and this high accuracy score allows me to use her in arena. But what is accuracy? And that's going to be our next step. So I was talking about the item pieces and their stars, their qualities. Next up we have, what types of stats are going to be on these items. This can definitely be, I've seen it confuse people, and like I said, we have different ways to learn things. It's not at all like self-apparent, and the in-game information is not really good at teaching you anything. If you didn't get it from like playing the game or like watching your streamers or the videos you like to watch, then it's going to be, you never took that advancement step yourself, your personal progression where you learn something that you previously did not know. So let's try to upgrade ourselves here a bit and go through the stats. So the HP is the amount of damage a champion can take before they die, of course. You're probably familiar with this if you played different games. What we can say about HP is that HP functions under HP efficiency. So this champion has above 50k HP, but 50k HP, even if it's a high number, it can be really weak if it's inefficient HP. And what you do to make the HP more efficient is increase your defense or have a damage reduction in different ways. There are items that give damage reductions, there are champions. So I have a Astralon, and he is currently at a high HP or a attack nuker, and his gear is suboptimal, definitely a lot of improvements I can make there, but it's still like pretty good to have an Astralon on a high HP because he has a passive skill which increases his HP efficiency. It decreases incoming damage if he has higher attacks. So I have a decently high attack score on him, 4.185k, since I said point. But anyway, so he can reduce damage. And he is sitting at a speed that is decently high, which makes him good for as an arena nuker. And then he has damage multiplication, which we are going to get at now, probably. So I described the health. So this guy, he wants to jump through the health of the opponents he's facing. To do that, he has a base attack. Like I showed you, the base attack was roughly 4.2k. And this base attack, when he uses his skill, it multiplies. There's a multiplier for the attack. So this skill, what can it do? An AoE skill, around 4 multiplier for attack. So 4,000 times 4, 16,000. That's sort of like the base damage that this skill will output. And different skills have different ratios, and these are not mentioned in the game. Like, the game has not very good information in it at all. Then you have multipliers for your damage. So one of the multipliers is your critical strike, and it's a very important multiplier. So he has a 100% to get a critical strike against when he doesn't have a chance to make a weak hit. There are weak hits in the game which will deny you your critical hit, unless you can somehow overcome that deny. Even some champions can negate weak hits, but so he will always critical strike. So 100% is the maximum efficiency of that. And then as he critical strikes, the damage will be amplified by 200%, which means, you know, he will do 3 times the damage. It's a 200% increase. So that 16,000 is now 48,000. It's multiplied by 3. And then we have the skill multiplier, which is this. Ideally, I would have a couple of legendary books in this very potent AoE skill. Or I could increase the damage here with another multiplier. You have multipliers in the masteries. Masteries are very important. So there's a multiplier here that the first hit he does, he has 8% multiplier. He has a multiplier here, for example, that when opponents have higher max HP on him, he does more damage. Examples like that. So whatever the multipliers end up, so we had our 48,000, it goes up a bit more. However, that damage is then reduced by the opponent's defense skill. So to avoid getting our damage hampered and reduced too much, we grab something like a Helm Smasher mastery here that can ignore high defense targets. You can use debuffs that reduce defense. You can use the Savage set, which allows you to penetrate defense. And some champions, of course, have skills that allow you to pass through defense so that you do unmitigated damage. Then if we're talking arena, of course, because damage and defense works in these ways, you have different matchups that work differently well. A champion with huge HP shields, like a miscreated monster, will do decently against a champion that ignores defense, because you might not stack as high defense on him, but you will have, you know, 70k, 80k HP, and not too hard to get on a miscreated monster, and he has his skill that with the damage he does, he gets buffs on you, shield buffs, and the shields will also, you know, prohibit one of that nasty defense penetrating pure damage from whacking you way too hard. So you can use big HP against pure damage, and that is also one of the things that players utilized against Bommal, the crazy bomber, because bombs is a debuff that does pure damage ignoring defense. So HP, good in that way, facing those pesky abilities that just go through mitigation. And then for normal damage, it's good to have high defense. So, and then, like I mentioned earlier, the high defense increases the efficiency of the HP. So here's a very tanky Skull Crusher with 4k defense and 58k HP. 58k is pretty decent HP pool. He can tank through quite a bit of things. That's how you can match up in arena. But so there are attack and defense and HP champs in the game, and you see this damage based on, and there's a green highlighted area here. So when I was talking about ratios earlier. Actually, I need to cut this in there, don't I? So a skill can have its damage based on attack, like this attack champ, and because of that he has it on all his skills. Because of that he'll want a decent amount of attack, since he's also someone I want to be doing damage with. Some champions it's not really important to do damage, Racine here, a fusible champ, very accessible. He has his damage based on defense. So what does attack do for this champ? Absolutely nothing at the moment, unless they introduce some interesting funny mechanic. It does absolutely nothing. So, and this has an advantage for like a def scaling champ, that you can build a lot of defense and HP, make them tanky, make them sturdy, and still do damage. Just remember to get your crit rate and crit damage up on someone who you want dealing damage, like a Racine here. There's also HP scaling champions, like a Miscreated Monster. He has damage based on HP here on his attack 1 and attack 2. And he has, you know, an aura and certain things. Base stats enables you to get really high HP scores as well. And this is something you have to consider when you're gearing a champion, when you're putting the gear on them, that you want to consider, like, do they scale well with a percent multiplier or a base multiplier. So a Miscreated Monster, for example, on level 60 he has 815 base defense. This is very low. I mean, him and Coldheart has atrocious base defense, 738, compared to a Tyrell who's like almost 1350. So it's a pretty big difference in defense, and you want to get the HP efficiency on Miscreated Monster. You don't want him dying that easily, and all that juicy HP he has, you don't want it to just evaporate like as if it was nothing. So you gotta get some defense on him. And then items that increase base defense, like a good shield. I only have a 5-star shield on him. A 6-star shield on him would be very good, because a 6-star shield has a good solid number of base defense. So that way I could increase his defense quite a bit. But he's sitting with his 5-star shield because it has a great speed score and also solid other stats to help him out. But yeah, that's something I can upgrade. And then for an amulet, I have a lot of... He needed a bit more accuracy and crit damage here, but he could do very well with some base defense. You see I've glyphed his base defense here. So 40 is 5%, right? 10% is 80, 5% is 40, yeah. So this is 5% here, flat defense. So usually the flat stats don't scale as well. You don't get as much use on them. 40 defense on Tyrell is not a very high percent. On your attackers and on a champion like Miscreated Monster, flat defense can be very good. So flat defense ring, definitely the choice you want, but he still needs to upgrade. I've been cheap and not upgraded this ring to 16 because I'm looking for an actually good ring. Probably not this one, flat HP. The counterattack is fun though. These counterattack jewelry from the clan shop are super good. Oh, this ring didn't go anywhere, but yeah, definitely going to be looking for a juicy ring for him. So that's how you can look at that. That's how you can match up in arena. But I mentioned debuffs. What are these debuffs then? It is the red marked symbols. There's a bunch of them. Provoke. There are lists online. For example, Hell Hades has a list over the buffs and debuffs. As I sometimes I will say debuff. If you don't like the long vowel first, please don't scold me too harshly for that. But anyway, so yeah, you can get debuffs on, but there's an attack and defense system for debuffs as well. So a debuffer can't just go crazy with their debuffs. And also any type of effect that you want to apply offensively that is not damage usually has a defensive response unless this is mentioned. So for example, on V6 here on her A1, A1 is short for attack 1, she has here that she can decrease turn meter and then fill up her own turn meter. And decreasing the turn meter, to do that, she will have to surpass the defense against debuffs and effects, which is the resist score. So champions have different base resists. V6 50, Arbiter 30, Riho here, she has 40. And in Summoner Wars, the game I mentioned that popularized this type of game and genre, you had I'm pretty sure that's how it was, you had a basic resist of 40 that all champions in the game had. And this was a resist that all champions had, and you could not surpass that. Because you can surpass the defense, and that's what accuracy is for. Accuracy, if we're talking like old school game terms, you can compare it to, you know, your Dungeons and Dragons. You have to get through a saving throw. The resist is like the saving throw, the defensive roll, and accuracy allows you to surpass those defenses. So a Vargal here, he has very high base stats. Among them, a 90 resist score, and then I have built him with additional resist, so he has a high resist, 300. So he's pretty difficult to get a debuff on. You would need a high accuracy score to get past his defense, which is trying to negate you applying your debuffs, your negative effects like reducing his meter, etc. And a 300 is a decently high resist score. If you have a resist score of 200, you will notice some few rolls, successful rolls in the late game, but it won't do that much. A 300 resist score is totally okay. A 400 resist score will allow you to negate effects even in hard Doom Tower, in Arena, you know, the end game places. So for like late game and end game, you will want to go for a 400 resist to negate the accuracy of your enemies and make it so that they can't apply negative effects for you, so you can develop a immunity that way. But then of course the counterplay becomes getting even more accuracies to surpass that, and then in the arena those two play into each other. So up in Platinum, among high tier players, you have resist and accuracy scores of 600, because they go so hard for those, because the negative effects are really strong in this game. The decreased defense debuff super strong. In Arena, you know, your various stuns, resetting skill cooldowns, etc. So negative effects definitely is something you have to be on the lookout for. And early on, you might not have the gear to get a high resist score, so then you'll have to work around with skills to clear the debuffs. Like our Riho here, she can clear or reflect debuffs. Good skill set for her. And she also has the buff that blocks. Except for that, you have other ways to remove the various negative effects in like the defense tree. You can get block debuffs naturally here after being stunned and feared. Can be really useful in some faction war, Doom Tower, Arena for some champs. Wisdom of Battle. Nice name too. We're learning that crowd control is very potent. And of course the immunity set. In high tier Arena you will see a lot of immunity sets, because you want to block those pesky abilities. So yeah, that's accuracy. It's basically a trump thing then. If you're familiar with trump games, the one with a higher resist, higher accuracy, higher resist can trump the other, but it's a random roll. And for PvE, the max accuracy can reduce. Since accuracy is a countermeasure to defenses, there is a maximum limit to what accuracy can do. You know, this champion, Molly Tankard here, she has 240 roughly resist, the defense score for debuffs. So then you would only need 240 to beat that kind of. No, it's a different system. Okay, I don't know the numbers exactly. You probably need more than 240 to fully deplete. But it's in this way that PvE works, that your clan boss that you're facing does have a limited amount of resist. So a clan boss champ here, it doesn't need to have very high accuracy, because he will eventually overwhelm the resist of that clan boss. However, in PvE, this is something I need to add, since we're talking about resist and accuracy and application. Applying your debuffs, at least in PvE, I'm not sure how it is in PvP. You'd have to ask people who have data mined it and checked it and know more than me, but in PvE there's a minimum defense of 3%. So if you want to apply a debuff like the HP burn here, you can only get a 97% hit rate max. Even if your accuracy, so this accuracy would normally, unless he gets the accuracy down, he has the accuracy to beat a lot of the PvE content for stage 20, for clan boss, things like that. But it will still only be a 97% hit rate. Then 3% of the time you will have unlucky resists, and that's just the way the game is. So, I mean, the intent is probably that, you know, the game should be a bit more dynamic, a bit more, you know, have some weird stuff going on, but it can be pretty frustrating when you're fighting the clan boss. It's big turns, and then you get that 3% freak resist on an important attack down, and suddenly, boom, your run gets wiped. So it can be frustrating, but that's just how the game goes. So yeah, penetrating defenses with your accuracy. So let's go over a few builds then. Like I said, this guy is a clan boss champ, so he will have a pretty decent HP and defense, 3.5k defense, almost 37k HP. This is pretty tanky for an attacker. He has his crit rate to get a high damage, and he has the decent accuracy that should be enough to reliably apply his debuff on the PvE content. What other champions do I have? We can check here. There we go. So here's like a easier to grab list. We're in the Artifact Optimizer, which is an external tool hosted by the Hell Hades community. They have a developer who's made this application where you can handle your gear and your champions, so to make your life a lot easier. Yeah, we can see here, we looked at Astralon. He has the damage, he has the high speed. His accuracy is not over 300, and you really want the stun to land on his first AoE attack, so probably the first thing I want to change about my Astralon is a higher accuracy score, so he can stun a lot. I probably want to get books on him, because the books are important, and I showed for a second there that he did not have books, and he can also get even more speed, go fast in arena. So that's the progression and upgrades I'm looking for in this champ. This is another attacker debuffer champ, so he has a high speed, decent attack score. Didn't go full crit on him, has high accuracy, bit sturdier build here, 2.5k defense, and he's in a stun set, so he will AoE and stun targets, so that's helpful like that. My Riho, she's amazing. She's really tanky, really debuffy, really What can't she do, you know? She has low resist, but she can reflect debuffs through a passive skill. So she's super useful. I would definitely want to make a video sometime about my favorite champ here, Riho. Ninja, he's a clan boss champ like I mentioned, so he has a lot of defense and HP for a attack champ. Oh, I guess I did not show that, huh? Speaking of a attack champ, and speaking of me not being methodical enough. So when I was talking about ratios earlier. Actually, I need to cut this in there, won't, don't I? But let's go back. I was showing you the gear optimizer. Here we go. Gear optimizer. So we have our attack champs here with their high attack, their crit. We want them to DPS. We have a defense champ here who applies debuffs, and I use her in arena, so I want her at 300-ish accuracy. Would be pretty nice with higher accuracy here on V6, and she has an exaggerated 5.4k defense, so I should probably review her items, try to get a solid defense score, but maybe not 5.4k. Try to get the crit up instead for a little bit of more of her juicy AoE damage, and try to get the accuracy and speed a bit higher. HP kind of want it around here. It's a solid HP, and you want V6 has taunt, so you want her to be able to take a few hits. But yeah, with a defense this high, she would definitely feel it against if she faces the champions that penetrate defense, or if she gets the debuff on her, which lowers her defense a lot. Molly Tankard, she's a reviver, so she does not have a particularly high crit rate. A lot of the time she, except for reviving, she also taunts without attacking. So she spends quite a number of turns not attacking. So it's not that important for her to do damage, but she has a little bit of crit rate and crit damage, a decent defense sitting at 4k, high HP. I have her in a regen set and a decent speed, so she can be pretty difficult to get through in for the enemy I'm facing in arena or certain other situations. This is an attack champ, DPS, Arbiter. She's a booster, so she's really fast. She's decently tanky, 3.5k def, 52k HP. She has some accuracy because there's some stuff she can do with accuracy, like reduce the duration of enemy buffs. A Syl here, she tries to be fast. Probably need to update her build, but she's in Relentless gear, so she's actually taking more turns than a champion otherwise would at 192 speed. You have a Kaimar. I want him really fast and really high accuracy for arena, so he's sitting on 400 accuracy, pretty nice. Generally solid stats. You know that he has an ability where his A1 can apply a poison if he crits. So I have a high crit rate on him. Doesn't need to be 100% in this case, it's just nice to have it decently high. He actually has a pretty monstrous build here. 220 speed, like lots of accuracy, just some crit multiplier here. The attack is low, but he's tanky, so he can use his special abilities that he's known for, the skill resets and stuff. Shamrock is a combined buffer debuffer, so he's really fast to initiate fights with his debuff and reducing meter. He's an inverse booster, so he lowers the meter and puts on speed reduction debuff. And he has a high accuracy for that, but he's also tanky. Very useful champion. Skullord Vargal, he's pretty weak build at the moment, but he has a shield set, so he's still very useful. A Resin Scarhide, he has decent speed, used in arena, used in different situations. His single target defense down weaken is super good. His attack to lower the meter against all opponents super good. So he has, and his scaling on the skills is good. So he's doing a lot of damage, super useful. Lugon here, he heals, he smashes with his mace. Ideally, get the crit rate up even more, get the accuracy up even more, so he can use his lockdown skill, get the speed up even more. He's in Relentless gear. Really good champ to have in Relentless gear. Also really good champ to put in Destroy gear against the Scarab in Doom Tower. He shields himself, so it's useful for the Scarab mechanic, if you're familiar with that fight. Farakin, basically I play him against a CB, so he has the clan boss champ defensiveness. He also has accuracy for his debuffs and speed to do some shenanigans there, but this is probably a non-standard Farakin the Fat build. Probably most people would want to build him a bit differently than this. Probably like a bit more attack and crit rate and less speed and some things go on. But it depends on your clan boss tuning, different things. So you'll have to check that out. A Vergis is a tanky champ who has to survive. He's in Regen set. His speed is kind of low. What's going on there? Yeah, it's because I've been doing the Scarab. I have a regen set on him for winning against Bomal, and then he's faster. But for Scarab, it's just put it on auto and leave the fight. Can I just back out of this? But yeah, there you have some examples of like tanky buffers, debuffers. No, a lot of attack champs here. Where's like a pure debuffer, like Duck? Duck here is very much a debuffer. So you can see on him I made him an arena debuffer. 354 accuracy is pretty solid. A 235 speed score, so he can go really fast. He needs 100% crit rate for his debuffing to work. That's the design of his kit. And a decent amount of tankiness. He is def scaling, so you can ignore the attack. Ideally, you can improve this kind of build, of course, to be even stronger and higher performing. Hofferis, buffer, and reviver. So he just needs to be fast and tanky. He should not be dying first. He's also HP scaling, so you weight it a bit more on HP, but you still need, as I mentioned, the HP efficiency. He has 300 resist, so it's a Doom Tower usable resist, especially with his aura, which gives him another 50, so which will give him 350. I can probably upgrade that. But yeah, this is how building can look. And if you have a champion that does not have any debuffs or effects like that, then you just give them 0 accuracy. My Doom Priest here has a certain amount of accuracy. That's a lot because I have my Great Hall upgraded with a lot of accuracy. She does not have gear picked out for her with accuracy. She just needs to go fast, be tanky. Some decent hitting is quite okay, like critting. She gives a buff to a random ally if she crits, so a decent crit rate is quite enjoyable on this champ. You can also build her in pretty high res, so which limits the amount of debuffs she has, so then she can just cleanse the few she gets, since she only cleanses one at a time. But it depends on what you use the champion for, how you want to do their build. Infernal Baroness, she has holes in her kit, but I used her as a high resist retaliation tank for spider farming before. Now she's and also a arbiter counter with high resist in arena. But yeah, she's been stripped of her gear. Gotta get some new stuff going for her. A Grizzle Jarl, really great buffing champ that also has other stuff in his build. You'll see the content creator Deadwood Jedi make clan boss videos where he has him at 279 speed or something. That's definitely something to look out for and something I want to test as well. So this Jarl is at some point, I think it's 279. I will have to check the video again, but get into that particular clan boss rhythm. And yeah, so Frozen Banshee here, she's stripped of gear. Here you have a Vrask, he's a team healer, so he has a high resist score, high HP, he needs to crit to heal. Why doesn't he have 100% crit? I would usually build 100%. Oh, it's because he's on the high resist build, because I was messing around against Bommal, the crazy Doom Tower bomber with him. But yeah, that's basically it. And I mentioned in a couple of my other videos that if you compare substats, say when you want to get, you know that, okay, this is a debuffer, I want a certain accuracy score on him, then you should be on the lookout for sets, because if you compare what you get out from the substats, the accuracy is super strong on a set bonus. So perception gear, 40 accuracy, 5 speed, super solid. A life's artifact set, this 15% HP, is pretty obtainable by regular substats and gear score. Like if you have a 6-star HP, what champion am I looking at? So she should have one, right? No, she's double defense. Oh yeah, she's the 5.4k HP one, and he has immunity gear. There we go. So like a 6-star piece has 60% HP. If it was a defense one, it would have 60% defense. So you can get like a lot of HP and defense percents here. And also if you look at the substats, like a triple roll in defense here, 25%, it's a lot higher than the set bonus. However, a roll like this thing, this is 5 accuracy rolls, and it's at 46, which is, you know, a really high accuracy score, 5-star item. So a 6-star item would be able to get even higher. And there's also a slightly random number when you're doing your rolls. So for a 5-star item, you can roll 4, 5 or 6. So a 6% is a high roll on a 5-star item. So if you're rolling a 5-star item and you get a bunch of 6% rolls, that's something you can be happy about. And speed also works a bit differently with that. And in a similar fashion, as accuracy set is efficient when we're talking resist champs, we should also go over the banners if we're talking accuracy and resistance, just remembered. But if we're talking resist champs like this, I used him as he has 350 resist, so I've been using him in Doom Tower because he has the very useful ability to give one target both decreased defense and weaken, so he can amplify the damage you're dealing quite a bit against the boss. Really useful. So if it's a boss with troublesome debuffs, then he has the high resistance score to negate that. Well, that does not work for the stage 21 faction war boss for dwarves, because it ignores resisting. It always applies its fear. No, it's a stun debuff, and one target gets the fear. But if you want a high resist score, yeah, definitely look at the resist sets, because their resistance and accuracy works in the same way. So you see here the accuracy rolled high, 2 10s, Resistance rolled mediocre, 2 9s. But the artifact set is just 40 straight up. Pretty considerable sets. The perception set, the resistance set, and the accuracy set that you might have seen on some champ. Here we go. And the accuracy set. Worth considering. Oh, looky. Got some nice glyph space here. Maybe I should do that now that there's a clan war. For some juicy clan wars points. But yeah, if we're talking accuracy and resist, a great source of accuracy and resist is the banner. In a banner, the other stats you might be seeing is here's flat attack, which is pretty mediocre to have on an item. Like I've been mentioning, like flat stats usually are of lesser efficiency to a level 60 champion. On a defense champion, you know, there would be a lot of stats here that did nothing. However, this item does have solid defense and HP here, and it could roll multiple speed rolls, so I saved it. I would probably roll it at some point, see if I can avoid the flat defense here, maybe get some juicy other big rolls. But yeah, flat defense kind of useful, and this also rolled speed, but then it rolled flat HP, and it's kind of what would I want to do with this? Might be useful, but yeah, a lot of the time if you have a debuffer, then they will want a accuracy banner. So this guy, he has a really important ability to nuke, but he can also reduce defense, and he has this AoE stun buff removal on veiled targets. That's absolutely wonderful. So yeah, you want a solid accuracy on him, and then a banner is a good choice. The alternative, if I did not go for an accuracy banner and I went for this flat attack banner, I would only get a mediocre flat attack bonus if I took this to 16. But you can use some champions, they will use an accuracy chest, but on this champ, you know, I get a 60% attack here, so that's a really solid amount of attack. I really want that. And then you have substats which are really decent for a blue item, high speed, crit rate, and some crit damage. So yeah, actually a great item. I do not want to give this item up and this big attack figure for an accuracy chest. It would be giving up too many stats, and that's often the case if I want to build a tanky reviver. I mean, Seal of the Drakes, she has debuffing ability. She can stun in an AoE, she can decrease speed, decrease meter, super useful disruption there. But she's a reviver healer. It's really important for her to stay in the fight and be able to conquer her opponents that way by outliving them. So super useful with this really big 60% defense. A flat defense score would not do much when she has a base defense of almost 1400. But you know, I want some amount of accuracy, so then you toss on the accuracy banner. Super useful, and she could actually get a decent accuracy if I leveled this to 16. It would go, because whenever you get an item to 16, it gets a higher incremental upgrade than the levels before it. So upgrading here from 14 to 15 would be 60, but then upgrading from 15 to 16, it would go from 60 to 78. So suddenly 18 more, 6 times more than the step we have here. So that's a big difference. So a 6-star accuracy banner, really useful when you're struggling to get your stats together. This guy, he has a lot of tankiness for the clan boss on his banner. The flat defense does a decent job here. It's maybe not ideal, depends. My Great Hall has such big accuracy in it too, so not too difficult to reach the accuracy score here. Yeah, the amulet also has accuracy in it, so not too bad to get a bit of extra defense here on the banner in this case. But yeah, otherwise the buffer will want an accuracy banner. And again, if they do not have any type of negative effect like this, like our what do we have? Oh yeah, our Doom Priest. Then accuracy chest, it would do absolutely nothing. She doesn't apply those negative effects, doesn't do anything like that. A accuracy banner would do nothing. So here, a defense banner or a resist banner is very preferable. In her case, because of her, she has this skill that works on her own turn. She wants to take a lot of turns a lot of the time so that she can keep healing, keep removing debuffs, so you want really high speed. And this is a really high speed banner at 20, or it depends what stage in the game you are. People who are in super late game, they would probably scrunch their noses at the meager 19 speed triple roll. What's this? No, not quite, but yeah, that's that. Here's a guy who has some fun skills if you haven't seen that. If you need a single target epic, this is an interesting guy, Gerard the Stone. A passive, which takes him out of crowd control, super useful. A single target nuke, which gives him buffs to get big crits, big multipliers on his damage, and he ignores defense. And then the A1, he can also stun, he can give you resist in Doom Tower. Very juicy champ. I'm gonna build him even stronger. He has, incredibly mediocre banner. Too bad about that one. If only it could have rolled some speed. But yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles. Oh yeah, he does the crit buff, so I only have him at 70% because he gets 30% from the crit rate buff, taking him to 100%. So that's something to look out for when you're doing builds for different champs. What are their skills? What do they do? How do these interact? So in Ogre Tribes, I have this guy who can also cast a increased crit rate buff, occasionally at least. So then if I have an Ogre Tribe DPS playing with him in the faction war, he doesn't need the crit rate that high. So I've been holding back and keeping this guy at 72% crit rate. However, his crit damage is and his defense is also so it still ended up being a mediocre build. But he's in Savage gear, so he can penetrate his defense, so he actually knocks pretty hard. But yeah, a good ring would take that mediocre defense score up to 4k. He has a 5-star crit damage gauntlet. Crit damage gauntlets, not the 5-star ones, the 6-star ones, is the highest damage you can do. Long term, like unless it's a bomber wants an attack glove because bomb scale of attack. But if you're doing direct damage, you're not a poisoner, you're not a bomber, you're doing direct damage, then end game, the highest scaling you can go, you will want a crit damage gauntlet, 6-star. 80% crit damage, it's just a higher value. So this is something, as you go further into the game and you want like the really high damage, then you have to get your crit rate up to usually 100% using different pieces of gear. So here's a random shield set piece with 3 rolls into crit rate for a 22 total. The different pieces are working hard to give him crit rate. And then the big glove here with the crit damage, and ideally, he has a 212% crit damage, which is solid, but you can get, good builds will get probably like, he's tanking because of clan boss, but like an offensive build will have probably 4k attack and close to 300% crit damage, if not 300%. So yeah, that's attack champs. A defense champs, they will probably have 4k defense no, not 4K, 4.5K defense. There's a threshold for defense where it starts having diminishing returns after 4.5K. You can still build higher, like when I explained ratios, my V6 has 5,330, and all these 5,000 will be accounted into her skills when dealing damage. However, the crit rate and crit damage still scales higher, so if it's just useful defense that it can both, be some HP efficiency, some tankiness, as well as the damage for a damaged champ. But yeah, she can be readjusted. And oh no. Oh no. I did all that with edge up. Blah, 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 blah. I am frepulated. I am befrazzled. I am blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, I was talking about, you see this guy, he has crit rate, so he's using a crit rate glove, and that's usually what you do in the early game, but eventually, you will look at different champs. They will have, he also only has a 5-star. 65%, get out of here, Astrolon. 80%, here you go. This was what I was trying to do, show. Shield set, wait, I'm here, right? Yeah. Shield set, 22%, big crit damage. Well, I was saying that there were probably better videos for oh, new mechanics. Well, anyway, as a last little finish here, let's get into the optimizer here. So let's say we want to do a build. I've been talking about my V6. So let's see here what we can do. If I'm doing, a champ that has needs that high damage, like I said, I will have to limit it to a crit damage gauntlet. A V6, she can have whatever. We're probably going to input a minimum of 4.5k defense. I don't really want her health to be lesser than that, 4,500. We don't want her accuracy to be less than this. So we don't really want to have the crit rate lower. So we're gonna see if we can beat her current stats. So I just sort of threw in some of her current stats. This is probably a 2 in priority. This is probably a 2 in priority. This is probably a 1 in priority. I just need a little bit over that. This is probably a 4 in priority. This is A2 and this A2. She can use any set. You can select here if you want to use specific sets. Like you will sometimes choose lifesteal. You will sometimes maybe choose immunity or such. If stats are important, like for this champion, I just want high stats. Then she can use any. You can use a filter here. I have most of my important champs locked, so I can try to see include equipped for artifact if there's a faction war champ that I want to, that the optimizer would like to steal an item from. And then you can search and you can see we're getting high speed scores, so speed definitely upgradable. HP too low. What happened there? Oh, 4,500. I see. So yeah, if we take a low HP, this one is 41k and 256 speed. So this is a solid build, but yeah, I do not have enough locks. I do not want to take Duck's gear. I like him as a speedy debuffer. I will not I would not want to take my Lysandra's gear. I'm just building her to be like super fast. So yeah, this is a super fast item, but it's for her boost. The dwarf, I'm probably rebuilding. So yeah, lock here, lock there. That's fine. Stats. Let's do 43,000. Clear. Start again. Yeah, now it's not so easy to find upgrades. What are we looking at here? Pretty decent. We can also look to our left here. You see in this panel, when I mouse over here, you see the green pluses. So she would reduce her defense by 800, but we reduce the crit damage by quite a bit. So significant damage decrease, not sure if I like that, for a minor increase in accuracy, speed, and HP. So I don't feel too worried about getting this, especially since I would have to take an item from my miscreated monster. Taking speedy items from my Katoon, probably doable now that I have my Lysandra on the way. I could just downgrade the Katoon speed a bit and use her gear for more important purposes. Okay, this is interesting. 209 speed, so it's a slight speed increase with an HP boot instead of a speed boot. So clearly getting, and this boot is unglyphed. So we're clearly seeing here that the optimizer finds a pretty solid boot lying around here that I'm not using. Should probably boost that up for the clan war. If we're doing a different champ like my Lysandra that I'm building, we put the champion to max level over here and we reset all our settings. And we set the speed to be like super speedy. She doesn't really need more than speed and accuracy. There you go. You could put like, you can use like a tiny value on this, but it's not really necessary. Oh yeah, and since I've apparently picked out, I've been looking at items and checking them earlier, and I picked out 3 pieces here. We can go into the slots and uncheck. I do not want to change her boots, shield, or helmet. But this is not updated until we clear and search again. But we can let the search finish here and see that we have a 293 build here with 400 accuracy, which is, very much functional for arena. It's pretty much what I'm looking for. But then she wants to steal 1 item from Apothecary and a solid crit damage glove from one of my DPS. So I would have to consider what I would want to do about that. I already gave her a shield, right? So let's see what the optimizer can do when looking through our items using that shield. 265 is a bit on the low side. It shows an accuracy chest here, so we're losing a lot of stats, but that's just trying to get a really high accuracy score for arena. There's a banner with some speed that's currently on Verges, which we could steal for her. But yeah, definitely mediocre. Oh, this is high accuracy gauntlet, I see. But we could definitely try to see if we can shake out some in the upgrading the gear situation for this clan war. For my Lysandra, I can keep an eye out for this bow is decently solid, but I can keep an eye out for, I can probably get a chest with a high speed score. If I get a chest with 15 speed score, then we would go up to 275 speed instead. Something like that, or trying to go 500 accuracy. It's probably higher. I mostly farm gold 4. I don't need 500 accuracy. So maybe use this is very high accuracy glove. Probably use less accuracy. We can try to lower the accuracy, or we can keep it on 8. We can soft cap it on 400, because 400 is probably good. A figure I would want, but I don't need much more than that. So now we're getting results around 400 here. And the speed it found could actually go up to 280 here. So yeah, and this is just a crit rate glove I'm not too worried about. It's stealing a high speed gauntlet from a allure here. Allure, you can use it for the clan quest to deny the Fire Knight a turn. So the Fire Knight never gets a turn. That's one of the things you use allure for. Or the Scarab, you can make her do so Scarab never gets a turn. She probably doesn't need super high speed weapon. So I could probably take it for Lysandra and find a decent speed weapon for allure instead. And then we end up with a 282 Lysandra. So that's an example of what you can do with an optimizer, and that's where I'm going to end the video. I'm going to have to do some interesting cuts since I messed up a bit here, but yeah, if you watched all this, thank you for staying with me. You can take a break now. Hopefully you had some coffee or something to endure, and I'll see you around.